Okay, here we are. So I'd just like to take a minute and welcome everyone, welcome friends, anyone who's tuning in at this point. So I have with me today, this is Lori Truesdale of Easter Seal's Workforce Incentives Planning Assistance Program. And so she is going to talk us through working and several questions that I have for her and how that affects an SSI benefit. And also we've got a few other SSI general questions thrown in. So I hope that this gives you a nice overview of what WIPA does and also things about SSI that maybe you didn't know or maybe you had questions about. So Lori, in a minute, I'd love to ask you to tell us a little bit more about what you do with the WIPA program, but I'm just going to take a quick minute to pray over our conversation and then we'll get started. All right. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this opportunity to talk with Lori. I ask that our conversation would be enlightening and the information that we have to share with our community would be insightful and informative. We thank you so much for this time together. Please bless our conversation in your most precious name. Amen. All right. So Lori, can you tell us a little bit about what you do with the WIPA program?
Yes, and thank you, Liz, for having me today. I'm so excited to be here with you and share about WIPA. And WIPA stands for Work Incentive Planning and Assistance, and we promote employment and how to be financially stable, and how we get a lot of questions about how does my benefits work when I go back to work? Will I lose my health insurance? And so our team is here to help answer those questions. And we know that Social Security can be a maze to try to figure out information and how to understand that information. I like to say we're mythbusters because there's a lot of different information out there about benefits and what happens, and should I go to work, should I volunteer, what's the best option for me. So we're here to help answer those types of questions.
That's awesome. I'm so glad that the community has you guys as a resource. That's really neat. I know I met Linda Baker, who you work with, at a transition fair, and I had no idea, even as a resource person, about the WIPA program and about the amazing work that you all are doing. So I'm really glad to know that you're available to our community. Awesome. Okay, so can you tell us just kind of briefly, I think parents who are viewing in today probably are coming from a variety of stages of life. And so for those who may not yet be connected with SSI or may just be starting off that process, could you just give a real brief overview about how to qualify, how an individual or a family would qualify for SSI and how to get started with the application process?
Right. There are rules in order to qualify for SSI. There's income limits and resource limits. So we often, or we do see people post eligibility. That's after they already qualified. But I always direct people to the Social Security website. They have a section applying for benefits, and that's a really helpful resource. And they also have publications, and to learn about all the rules, you would go to their publications and click on the SSI program, and it goes into, there's a lot of great publications about what you need when you apply for SSI, what things you need to bring with you or have handy when you're talking to the claims rep, and the different income limits and resource limits. Because a lot of times if someone's under 18, they don't qualify yet because they count the parents' income too. But once the child hits 18, then they become their own household, And that's when a lot of people can apply for SSI for the first time.
Okay, awesome. Is most of it done online now, or do you have to go into an office?
Most of it's online. You can get a starter kit online, or you can call their 1-800 number,
Okay.
and it's on the website to make an appointment with the claims rep. And they can help you fill out the paperwork and everything. So,
Good deal. Thank you. Okay, so one question that I've gotten from families is that once a young adult who is still living at home has applied for SSI and been approved, and then they started receiving SSI, I've heard families say, wait, all of a sudden their check started to get reduced, and they found out they were charging their loved one rent. And I think that's kind of a foreign concept to some parents, like, why would I charge my loved one rent? That doesn't make sense to me.
Yes.
Can you explain why that's important and why that's kind of a requirement of SSI?
Yes. So in order to determine how much SSI someone gets, Social Security has to determine what is the living arrangement. Are they getting help with food and shelter? Because SSI is a means-tested program or a needs-based program. And SSI is set up to where it can help with food and shelter. So if someone's paying $0 for food and shelter, they have to reduce that SSI. And
because the SSI can be used for food and shelter itself.
Oh, okay. So food and shelter, yes. So if they're not paying any on food or shelter, the Social Security will come up with a dollar amount that they're receiving help, and so that reduces the SSI check. So what I tell families, in Texas, there's a unique rule, and it's only in Texas. It's called the Diaz rule, and it's based off of a court case. But basically, what it says, if someone can pay $281 in rent, then there won't be reduction. The maximum amount of SSI is $783 this year. But again, if they're not paying for rent, for instance, they could get a third of that reduced, so it would be 500 something. So we always tell people it's best to get the maximum amount to bring into the household. So charge them rent. Yeah.
Okay, and then it sounds like, so with the Diaz rule in Texas, that rent only needs to be $281.
Right, but there's different ways. You could do rent. You don't have to do the Diaz rule, but I just know that that's unique in Texas. That let's say it's good because let's say after someone takes the household expenses divided by the number of people in the house, what if that's more than $783 a month? They can never pay their fair share. So in Texas, we have that Diaz rule. Where if you can pay $281, you won't see that reduction. But someone can technically do it the other way, where you just take all the expenses divided by the number of people in the house.
Okay, and that's how you found out what their fair
what their fair share is. But a lot of times the expense it would be too much. It would be more than. They can never pay that. So the Diaz rule is really good.
Good to know. Texas. That's great. I hadn't read anything about the Diaz.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know about that one. Yeah.
Well, wonderful. All right. Well,
so 281.
Good deal. All right, so I have another question. So really getting to the point, kind of your expertise area. What if I had a son or daughter who was living with me, and they really wanted to be working, and say they wanted to be working at least kind of at a minimum, like 20 hours a week. They were able to, and they could make like $10 an hour.
Okay.
That
Yes.
seems like a really significant amount of money. And I know there's the $2,000 asset cap. And so for
Right.
mom, that gets kind of concerning. Is that, how would that work? How would that affect their SSI benefit?
Yeah. So this is the part of the interview where we get out our calculators on our phone, and our phone really becomes the smartphone here. So yes, there is a math formula that we're going to look at today, because when earnings go up, you will see SSI go down. And a
Okay.
lot of people freak out when I tell them that. But when we look at the formula, you'll see how it's a financial gain by working than not working. Because SSI, it's 783 this year, and it's not going up this year. So the only way to see a financial gain really is to go to work. And it's pretty work friendly, and I'll explain. A pay you were talking about, Liz, it would be about $866 a month. So if someone has unearned income, Social Security would ignore $20 of that. If they don't have unearned income, then they take it right off the top of earnings, which means they totally ignore the first $20 of income of
Okay.
earnings. And don't ask me why they chose $20. Sometimes you just have to say the Serenity Prayer on some of these numbers. So now we're down to countable income after the $20 of $846 in earnings from work. But then there's an earned income exclusion of $65 that they're totally going to ignore when they're trying to determine how much SSI someone gets. So that's to $781 now. Now what they do is count half of that. So they divide by 2, and what we're left with is $390.50. So instead of looking at the 866, they'll look at the $390.50
Okay.
when they're deciding on how low to go with that SSI check. And that's total countable earned income is $390.50. So what they do after that, and this is where some people might freak out, is they take the full maximum benefit rate, if that's what the beneficiary is getting, minus the $390.50, and the new adjusted SSI payment will be $392.50. And so instead of getting $783, now they'll get $392. And some people will be like, well, I was getting $783. They're taking my benefit away. That's not a financial gain. But it is, because when you put back the earnings from your work, 866, and you add $392.50 to it, someone's getting over $1,000 in their pocket by working than not. Instead of it being $783, now they're getting now they're seeing a financial of $1,258, and that's significant.
It really is. Thank you for
I
outlining
think
all of
that's like $800 more money coming into the household than was before.
Right, right.
Mm-hmm.
I know that one of the things when looking at it for me and viewers, just FYI, I know this scenario that I've lined up, the math didn't exactly line up with hers, but we just wanted to give you that scenario just to kind of, so I'm going to take this down real quick and go back to our interview. Awesome. Yeah, no, I really find that helpful to really understand kind of the nitty gritties of the math and just see it all laid out. So thank you very much for sharing all that with us.
Mm-hmm.
My next question for you is that, so if I have a loved one, sorry. What happens if my loved one was working successfully at their job, kind of the scenario that we laid out, 20 hours a week or so, making some good income. And what happens if after like 6 months or a year, maybe 2 years, they lose their job? We know that sometimes that happens. How quickly can they get back to getting the next SSI benefit?
Yes, so in Social Security, we know nothing happens in real time, unfortunately, but they have this accounting where whatever happens in June affects August check. So you'll see a little bit of delay, but the good news about that is you don't have to reapply for benefits and start over again. The person is still in the system as eligible for SSI. It's just, it takes them a little while to do that accounting. So I always tell people, well, at the beginning of your job, you might want to save a little bit so that if something happens and you do experience that delay, that it won't be as big a deal.
Mm-hmm. So in that scenario, would it work like the individual would need to call Social Security and report that they'd lost their job?
Yes, they need to know. It sounds like the following when the person stopped benefits. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because I need to say that it's so important to report earnings. It's so easy to get an overpayment in SSI program. So, but a lot of people think, well, Social Security knows I'm working. Well, I like to say Social Security is a sleeping giant. You have to go wake it up, because eventually they'll share IRS and Social Security shares information, but it may be way down the road. So you want to go ahead and report that. And there's many ways to report earnings. You can do it online. They have an app now. They have phone wage reporting. Usually I say the first time you report, you'll want to go in the office. Of course, right now we can't, but usually you'll want to see that person and see the claims representative.
That's really helpful. Thanks. All right. So say my loved one is actually still in the school system. Maybe they're an age or just maybe they're under 22, and they're very interested in working. Maybe they've gotten some great training, or they've got some job skills that they're just kind of itching to exercise. That makes me really nervous as a parent, because I want them. I don't know if that's a good idea, or if it's just better for them to volunteer at this time and build their job skills that way. Or so can you help us to understand what makes sense in that situation?
Yes, so I'm glad you mentioned that, because there is a work incentive called Student Earned Income Exclusion, where basically Social Security ignores all of the person's income up to $1,900 a month. So if a person is, again, under age 22 and regularly attending school, they won't see the SSI go down. But once they hit 22, then the regular formula applies. And if they hit the maximum year exclusion of $7,670. Once they use that up, then the regular formula applies. But yeah, student earned income is very good work incentive. Now this one's not automatic, so the parent or student will have to tell Social Security, I'm still in school, and provide proof that they're in school, and then this exclusion will apply.
Okay. Well, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then what about if down the road, my loved one they're really able to handle working full time, but we desperately need to make sure that we keep our Medicaid. That's a
yes
for us. And so I'm pretending to be a parent. That makes me, again, really worried because I really don't want them to lose that benefit. And so how would it work to have my loved one working, what's considered full-time, 40 hours a week, earning a good income? How would they be able to retain their Medicaid?
Right. I can sense your concern, and I get that fear about the Medicaid aspect, because in that situation, SSI would cash out, meaning at the end of that formula, it would be zero because he's working enough where he wouldn't receive a SSI cash payment. And that is alarming, but he would still be considered SSI eligible. He would just be in non-payment status because of a really powerful work incentive. It's called 1619B. And in this scenario, it's your best friend because it keeps you eligible for SSI. Well, and the computer is eligible, just in non-payment status. And also what it does is keeps you connected to Medicaid. So, and in 1619B, you can keep that category as long as earnings from work cause the SSI to go pause, the cash payment to go away. And the annual limit to keep it is over 35,000. It's like over 35,000, almost 36, and that's an annual figure. And you might be worried, well, what if he goes over that annual figure? If he uses Medicaid a lot, Social Security can come up with an individualized threshold where he may be making $50,000 a year and still keep 1619B.
Really? So is that something that you need to talk to, like, specifically at Social Security about that? Like,
I would come to us first.
Okay.
We can help you determine that, or give you like the worksheet Social Security uses in different documents, so that when you do talk to Social Security, they'll have a better understanding of what the beneficiary is trying to do. Like, we can prep them on what to say and stuff like that. Because we've had several where they should have been getting 1619B, and it's supposed to be automatic, but that didn't happen. And maybe they talked to a new staff person that didn't know, and then we did have to get involved. So we can definitely advocate for the continued Medicaid if someone's using it a lot, or maybe they have a Medicaid waiver that pays for community supports. They need to stay on Medicaid in order to keep their services going. So 1619B would be an option to keep those services going. So I would definitely, if someone's having that experience, send them to us first.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great to know. It sounds like you guys at Easter Seals, WIPA, and SSI really speak the same language, and so coming to you can be a
Yeah, like
way to navigate their system better.
yeah, like Social Security speaks their language, and then we kind of decipher it and then speak regular language. Because sometimes their publications are like, foreign language, like
Oh
how are
my
people
God.
supposed to understand,
And they're so
all this
dense.
stuff?
They're so
Yeah.
dense and so wordy, and yeah,
Yes.
be hard to translate, if you will.
I know some people, they'll call up and say, I got this letter from Social Security, and then we'll read it, and it's so wordy and complicated, and we're like, okay, here's what this really says.
That's
Yeah.
wonderful, though. I mean, I'm just so glad that y'all are out there to be
Yeah.
an asset to people. I mean, that's so important and it's invaluable. Well, so Lori, we're getting towards the end of our interview, but I have kind of one last question for you. Can you tell me what happens when a parent caregiver retires? How does that affect the adult child's SSI benefit? And is there a special process that the parent caregiver needs to go through? Can you explain that a little bit?
Yes, I'm glad you asked, because that does happen. So what that's known as disabled adult child benefit. And when a parent retires or receives disability benefits, they need to, tell Social Security that they have children and ask if they would if their child would qualify for payments off of the parent's record.
Okay.
Because SSI is the payer of last resort, so they'll require you to, to apply for any and all benefits that you could qualify for. So, and it's from a parent's work record, so it's different benefit than SSI.
Okay.
They may get more money than SSI, or Social Security may pay them some of the adult child benefit and a little bit of SSI, so they would be concurrent, which means they would get more work incentives too. So.
Oh. Well, that's great. So it sounds like really when that happens, it's a phone call that needs to happen from
Yeah.
the parent caregiver needs to and say, I am retiring. Does my child qualify for?
Yes.
It's a disabled
Adult child.
Disabled adult child benefit. Okay, that's really helpful.
Yeah. So yeah, I understand. I also was receiving benefits as well, and so I know how scary it can be to think about. Not really the cash payments. I know that parents and beneficiaries are worried about actually the health insurance, because the health insurance also pays for other things, like we mentioned Medicaid waiver services, and those programs are there to help later in life so that the beneficiary doesn't have to go to a nursing home. So when people are thinking about work, they're having to decide, do I have to decide for working or the risk of going to a nursing home? So it is scary business. And I remember, like, when I was in high school, I was thinking about, maybe interviewing at a bank. I heard that they were wanting people with disabilities, but one of the educators at school was like, hold on, you don't want to do that because you can only earn $65 and then you'll lose everything. So, I mean, I saw the panic in her eyes. Of course, we know that she only knew a little bit of the formula, not the whole thing. So that scared me. So I didn't work until like later on. And then when I did get a full-time job, I was ready to party. I was like, yes, I got a full-time job finally. Then I remembered the face of the educator, and like I was like, oh no. So the party ended pretty quick. But then I got connected with the benefits counselor who told me about 1619B. And so, and actually I'm still using 1619B, so it does work. So I just
That's
wanted
awesome.
to give parents encouragement when they're thinking about their child going to work and how scary that can be, that it's also, these work incentives do work.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really great to know. Awesome.
Yes.
Well, thank you. Well, one of the last things I wanted to do is I wanted to share your, well, not your contact information, because I understand that people need to contact Lori. Not Lori, you're Lori. I'm sorry, Linda, right?
Linda.
Um, and then they can get set up with a benefits counselor from there. So I wanted to give everyone Easter Seals contact information. So right here, and let me.
Yeah, because we do individual one-on-one counseling as well as, presenting to the community. So.
Yes. Okay. We're gonna.
And our services are free as well.
That's awesome. I think that's just so wonderful. All right, so there on the screen, everyone, is the contact information for the Easter Seals Football Program of North Texas. Like we said, Linda Baker is kind of the main contact, and Lori works as a benefits counselor. And is there another benefits counselor as well?
Yes, we have. There's two other ones. One handles Fort Worth. Actually, we have 12 counties, so we're pretty spread out. But someone shares Dallas County with me, and we have other counties as well.
Okay, all right, well, great. So hopefully I've left that up there long enough. Anyone viewing this, please feel free to if you didn't get that information or it came down too quickly, please don't hesitate to email me at irwinl@hpumc.org, and I'd be happy to give you the contact information as well. We can share that. Maybe I'll share it in the link below as well. That's probably a good idea. I think you can do that on YouTube. So, Lori, thank you so much for your time. This has been really wonderful and informative for me, and I think for our community as well. So thank you so much for giving us your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.